Hello, everybody. Oh, no, thank you. Thank you, folks, for being here. I did want to acknowledge Council Member Tamara Paulton, who just got out of a committee meeting to make it out here. I know she ended her meeting a little bit early so she could come and join us. Thank you, Council Member Paulton. I would be remiss if I didn't comment on how successful this past Saturday's Unity rally was for your community. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who took part in that. The county had very little to do with any of it, except for maybe the permits for some of the roads and the parks and stuff. But the work goes to your community, and it rose up from your community. And it was a pleasure for a lot of us. I know I speak for the different agencies who may come up and make a comment as well on that Saturday, because we were all invited, and our federal partners, they all stood down that day. They've been doing 7 days a week, in case you didn't know this. They've been working 7 days a week. I want to say 10-hour days to get this project and everything going from Kula to Lahaina. On that day, at the request of the governor and myself, they stood down that day so they could take part. And instead of taking the day off, a lot of them came and also walked with us. So I just wanted to thank all our federal partners also. A lot of the folks in this room were at that rally. I think what that rally represents is how a community event is supposed to be run. Amazing logistics, just thinking of all the things that that were needed to be done. And then just the spirit. People still come up to me, what is today, Wednesday? Commenting on how that was for themselves. So I think you should be very, very, very proud of yourselves for, again, doing something that was multi-ethnic, included people from all around the state of Hawaii, and some that came from the mainland to be here. I know that because they came up to me to tell me they came from the mainland to be there. And then, of course, all of the water people, and I'm talking about the canoes, the different canoes. It's a big event. In case you're not aware, for when the Hokulea comes summer. And there's big protocol, big ceremony when the Hokulea comes ashore, and the greeting and the Hawaiian protocol that happens. Here you had the Hokulea, you had the Hikianali, and the Makali, you had all the different, 5 different canoes that came from around the state of Hawaii to come and honor you guys, your community. And so for the people who put that together, it's no small feat. And if you're someone who doesn't normally witness Hawaiian protocol, you had the chance to see that there. You're not going to see it if that's not your thing. And it happens very rarely in a public setting like it was. And again, all part of the detail that went into what seemed effortless and seamless, had a lot of behind the scenes work to make it happen that way. So again, I was just proud to be invited and to be part of it. And I just appreciate all the folks who make that happen. I just have really one main announcement I want to talk about. By a show of hands, how many of you know the project Kupu'ohi, the Kupu'ohi project that is in Lahaina development? Okay, so those units obviously burned in the fire. They are trying to rebuild that very quickly and rebuild it within the next 24 months. I think those are 89 family units. So the timeline that they're working on is a very short timeline to try to get this rebuilt. Again, very unusual. It was just built, and then it obviously got burned in the fires. So that opportunity presents itself. So the debris cleanup, that project did not go with the Army Corps of Engineers cleaning. They did the opt-out of the ROE program because they have subject matter experts who were able to clean that and do that. There were no residents that were missing from that project, no human remains from that. Everybody was accounted for who lived in those dwellings. The Department of Health, who's represented tonight, have requirements about the cleanup of that property. Those have all been met. So starting next week, the county is approving that project being started back up so they can rebuild. Debris there is being allowed to be transported to the Central Maui landfill directly there where the Kula debris was taken. And again, that was because they met the requirements of the Department of Health and are following the same procedure as the Army Corps of Engineers. If you're not part of the Army Corps of Engineers, you cannot take the degree to the Olaworo temporary site. That is only for the Army Corps of Engineer project. Everyone else will have to have a location to take theirs. In this case, they're being allowed to use Kula. Again, the material is being also carefully wrapped as is required with the burrito wrap. And so there are going to be unique situations such as this project. So I want you to know that the county is taking into account all the unique circumstances, just like each of you have in your homes and your dwellings. Not everything fits exactly into the parameters that we've set, but when people are able to meet the requirements that need to be met, then the county is willing to work with those projects. And that's the announcement I wanted to make to you tonight, is that Kupuohi project will begin rebuilding next week because they were able, on their own expense, to clean that area and be ready to start back up. So that's the news I have. I think that is good news. And they're trying to make that available, obviously, to the people who had previously been in those places. And there's another unit that they have built free. Actually, I take that back. They have another unit that's built that I think they're going to allow the people that were displaced to move back into the new one. And then the people intended for the new one that was built come into this new this one that they're rebuilding. That's, I think, the plan. But I have the pleasure of introducing one of our speakers tonight. Her name is Laurie DeGama. Laurie is one of the 6 members of the Lahaina advisory team. Several of her colleagues are sitting here tonight. We alternate. Last week, Kaliko spoke. The week before, Archie spoke. So we'll rotate who's speaking. She can tell you more about what they do and what they have, but I want to pre-announce next week, Wednesday, the 31st, the entire agenda will be handled by the advisory team. So the 6-member advisory team will be the topic of discussion, and we'll be open to receiving questions. And so Laurie can tell you more. This is Laurie DeGama.
Hello there. This is what happens when you grumble that the meetings are boring. So he said, "You're up, Laurie." Anyway, thank you all for coming and taking the time to be here. I know we're all busy. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge my other advisory members that are here: Kim Ball, Rick Nava, Archie Kalepa, Kaliko Storer. I think Nestor's the only one who couldn't make it tonight. Again, I'm Laurie DeGama. I am Lahaina Luna PTSA president. I'm also a fire victim as well who lost a home. My bucket for the mayor is health and social services. Currently, my goals have been for the kupuna because my mom is 82 and she's living with me, and I need to get her out there and busy. So I have reached out to people in Office of Aging, Stacy Shabao of Kaunoa Senior Center, Ruth Griffith, and they're still trying to locate or find a place to have something for the seniors, to have something to do. It's very important. We're not all equipped with patience, and so people are taking care of their elders, and we all need a break, and so I am advocating and pushing for that. At one point, we were talking about a resilience center where we could have all kinds of health and resources available. Again, locations have been difficult because we're all on the west side and it's limited in space. For me, I haven't been able to attend. My first goal is I'm a mom. I'm a soccer mom, so I've been attending soccer games. And basically this past holiday season, mental health and holiday and depression was a real thing. So I went out and I sought out some mental health to see what our services are offering and how easy it is. And I want to say, if you're looking for any services, if you need someone to talk to, you really should, for all purposes, sign up for the Maui Recovers app. And it has all kinds of information there. It's very well updated, and especially mental health. One of my personal notes that I would like to share with everyone, that I do share with people on my social media with friends and family, is if you did lose your property, I recommend and suggest, I do this all the time. I go back to my property and I have different emotions every time. I will sit at it. Sometimes I cry, sometimes I'm looking. And I recommend just taking a picture for after the fire. Once the debris removal is done, it'll be all cleared and it'll be a new picture. So I recommend that. Once again, next week, the advisory will be up here running the show. And I think that's about it for me. Thank you.
Okay, at least I'm close in her height than Mayor Rissa. Anyway, before we move on to our scheduled updates, you're going to hear tonight, of course, from FEMA Army Corps of Engineers. Last night we met in Kula, and they happily and proudly announced that they completed Kula. So the Kula residents there are very, very grateful for the next step. We're also going to hear from EPA a little bit about the the ROE, the right of entry process. The Department of Health is here, and our friends from SBA want to remind us about some important dates. Then we're going to invite up Josiah from the Office of Recovery. Last week we talked about that public sentiment survey and analysis, so he's going to share some of that. Next week, we're going to have a fuller program with the members of the Mayor's Advisory Committee offering that. Next week, we're also going to be talking about the process for selecting a final action debris disposition site, which will not be at Olowalu. So that's coming up next week. So a lot of things happening, pretty exciting. Amos, our administrator for the Maui Emergency Management Agency, is offline today, but there is a reminder with regards to vandalism and theft on properties. You know, if you notice vandalism or theft going on a property, your property, or others that you have seen, we advise you to file a police report. Simply call the non-emergency number 244-6400. 244-6400 is Maui Police Department's non-emergency number. So please use that to report. Do not hesitate if you see vandalism occurring in the neighborhoods. It's really important we do that. At this time, I'm going to call up FEMA Curtis Brown to share with us an update from our partners from the federal side. Curtis.
Can you guys hear me okay? All right. So as the mayor mentioned, on behalf of the 50 FEMA participants that walked on Saturday, thank you to Archie, thank you to the community. It really allowed FEMA to engage the multicultural community, and it's a heartfelt thank you to all of you guys for allowing us to join. It was warming, it was really warming. Thank you. As far as updates tonight, the right of entry meetings that happened 2 Saturdays ago, we have another one this Saturday, January 27th. Army Corps of Engineers, community experts will be there to answer your questions regarding the right of entry, so it's important to get that information. On last Wednesday, I talked about background checks. Good news there is that we have more people or more survivors that are communicating back to the property management companies regarding background checks. And as I mentioned last Wednesday, don't fear filling the background check. We have a unit for you if you fill that background check. So when you get that text message, email, or phone call regarding a background check, just go through that process. If you have any hurdles, I advise you to call that 1-800-621-3362 number, or come down here to the DRC to arrange someone to walk through the background check with you. As I mentioned last week, our direct lease program has tonight's numbers are at 1,130 recipients with 110 licensed in. And so that number is increasing. And so once again, if you get that call from FEMA that we have a unit for you, my advice for you is to take that unit because you only get one shot at it, right? And so if we call you, take that unit. The rental assistance program. We've had over 3,000 survivors that receive rental assistance. We've only had 300, or nearly 300, I think it's actually 270 survivors or displaced households come back for continued rental assistance. And so if you need continued rental assistance, please call that 1-800-621-3362 number or visit the DRC here and have someone walk through your case. The reason why I mention that is because over 3,000, like I said, got the initial 2 months of rental assistance. Only 270 of you came back for additional rental assistance, right? And so if you're fearful that you spent that first 2 months of rental assistance on something other than rent, call the number or come to the DRC, talk to one of the staff here, and we'll walk you through how to get the continued rental assistance. Don't leave that grant on the table. Don't have your families paying for your rent when FEMA can handle that for you. So I guess that's my advice to you is who wants to leave any money on the table, right? Alternate living expenses. Last Wednesday after the meeting, a couple of you approached me regarding insurance and that line item with additional living expenses or loss of use expenses as far as payment from your insurance company. Yes, you must use all of that before FEMA provides you either money and or a unit, but we will. And so once again, if you have that ALE or loss of use in your insurance policy, within 30 to 45 days before that money runs out, come to the DRC or call that 1-800 number and we'll walk you through how to either get a direct unit from FEMA and or a grant money, right? So thank you guys. We'll turn it over to Colonel Curry from the Army Corps. Thank you.
All right, thank you, and good evening again. I'll just, as always, start with just expressing how much we appreciate the opportunity to come provide these updates. We come do this every week, but it's never dulled on us that this opportunity to communicate, to stand before you and talk about the things that we're working to do and the things that you're concerned about it's something that it's a privilege, and we appreciate that trust that you've shown to us as we have sought to provide these updates every single week. A couple of things, and I've got quite a few things to talk about tonight and some things to show on the screen. But again, I'll try to work through them as quickly as possible. And I'll just start by saying that, afterwards, as always, we do stick around to answer questions as long as is necessary, at the table with the red tablecloth back behind me, and then looking for our folks that are in either red or white Corps of Engineers shirts. So they will stick around. So I'll start just real quickly with the update. So last week I stood here, we had one crew working in Lahaina on the first property in Lahaina. So in a week's time, as of today, we just expanded to 7 crews. So there's 7 crews working simultaneously right now. Those crews in that amount of time, so they've completed removing the debris from a total of 10 properties as of this afternoon. So 10 properties have had all the debris removed, and we're in the process of now testing those and sending those tests off to make sure that we got everything. Once those tests come back, then if the tests come back as with no concerns, then those properties will receive, we'll get some erosion control placed on them, and we will be complete with those properties. So that's with really, we were 5 crews till today. Today we expanded to 7. So just with that limited number of crews, they were able to get 10 properties done. And again, there's 7 more properties that they're working on right now that will continue to be done over the next couple of days. That continued expansion, really we expect by early next week to be up to 9 crews, with the ultimate goal of being around 15 crews sometime by the end of next week, somewhere around there. The reason that it's taken us some time, we're just being deliberate in how we're expanding these crews. Now, you may have noticed that if you pay attention to the properties that we're working on, we are focusing on those properties that are close to existing residences for life, health, and safety, to get those clean so that if folks are living there now, that they will be safer in those homes. But ultimately also, if they're not living there, we expedite the process at the time that it might be for them to be able to get back into those homes. So, but we've got crews working in multiple neighborhoods throughout Lahaina. And one of the reasons that that's important, if you've seen us doing the work in the last week, a lot of trucks, a lot of equipment. So having them spaced out so that they don't slow each other down is an important part of the construction side of this effort. I would say that I know we've received some questions about the process, and again, continue to do what we can to help people understand the process, and particularly as you watch us do this work, it would be natural to ask, to make your own assessments for where we're at in the process. Well, that looks like they're removing the recyclables, and now in the next step, that looks like they're starting to take up the ash. But as that process goes forward, we are working now. We actually today had a very gracious homeowner that agreed here in the next few days to let us do a time-lapse video of their property as we clear it. And then we're going to put that out with labels and ways to spread as far and wide as we can what that process looks like. I did bring a couple of photos, so I'll just got them up behind me. So what this is a picture from Kula on this side would be the before picture, and on this side is the after picture. So next slide. And then similarly, this is one of the early properties here in Lahaina. So again, the before picture on your left, and then the after picture on your right. So again, this is a good example of, and there was a lot on that property for recyclable concrete primarily, that was that first step, the things that were removed. But ultimately, those crews out there working with heavy equipment where necessary, but also with shovels and by hand as necessary on these properties to get it to the point where it is clean, and we get you that much closer to being able to get your building permits and to move forward with rebuilding your homes. One of the other questions that we received is for those coming into the burn zone, coming to watch your properties be cleaned. And I would, again, if there's any doubt amongst the community, we love it when the homeowners come out and want to observe and be a part of the cleaning of their properties. That interaction actually is really helpful for the crews on site, because as they start to get into those properties, they may find things that they didn't expect. I think just today we had a property that when they did the 360 assessment and did all they missed in the middle of the property after they removed some debris, there was another wall that they were not aware of before. So we're able to communicate with the homeowner, able to get the cultural monitors and the archaeologists to come look at it and determine what to do with that. But again, we would encourage anybody and everybody that has us working on your property, please do come out and communicate with us while we do it, because again, we want to make sure we're doing the best job possible for you as we work through the process. As you do that, though, I would say, again, a statement of the obvious to a degree, just again, as places where you park and watching out for the heavy equipment that's moving. Obviously, you just got to be cautious as you're getting there. I would always recommend parking a bit of a distance away and walking up. As you do that, there's some folks that who you should look for when you get to those properties. So go to the next picture. So back to that one. So this is a picture of our quality assurance representatives, just as of that was last night. And we're continuing to bring more folks in, so you'll see some different faces than what are on the screen. But they are the ones that are out there at every property that is working with the cultural monitors, the archaeologists, the contractor removing the debris, again, to make sure that we're doing it right. And so if you go out to your property, look for one of these folks. I also did put one of our teammates on the spot. Someone asked him to walk over. So obviously they do also, they're in their protective gear. So if you look what to look for, look for that helmet with the red stripe and the vest. Those personnel are there Again, that would be the first person you try to find, and they can help make sure that you're watching from a safe place, but also is there to answer questions and to help work through the unique aspects of your property. Thank you. Another thing I wanted to point out, and we'll go to the next slide. When I talked about the update statistics, so we just put this out there today. The team's been working on it for a while, but so we just put out as a public-facing viewer where you can go on, anyone can go on and see the progress that we're making. So I'll explain a little bit about this viewer, and then there's a bigger glow of the QR code at the bottom that you can scan will take you straight to this viewer. But you can see the statuses on the side that are a little hard to read, but the blue status ultimately means that property has had all the pre-removal requirements met. So all the phase 1 assessments, really the key piece at the end is that we've received the right of entry for that property. So that those properties, once we get that right of entry and all those things are received, will show up on this as in that blue category, indicating that we're ready to start on that particular property. Now the next colors really indicate the debris removal itself. So the first one, that kind of orange, is the physical debris removal is in progress. So they've started to remove that debris, and that property is actively being worked on. From there, it goes to physical debris removal complete. So that is an indicator to say that all that debris has been removed, and we're ready to move to the next step, which is to do the soil test. And then the final one there, the next one, the light green, indicates that we have tested that soil, and we're just waiting on those results. The last one at the bottom means we got the test results back. If it came back as clean, then that property is complete. If it did not come back as clean, we'll do that additional rescrape, and then again go back into the same process. Go to the next slide, please. And this is essentially lines up with it's also available on the viewer. You can click on this chart that shows again everything that I just talked about. Again, the column on the far left talks about those pre-debris removals, so everything that has to be met before it comes up in that first blue category. The middle column is really those colors in the middle, talking about the active debris removal. And then obviously the far right column is the column that indicates that property is done. And again, so as you're looking at those colors and people are asking, well, I'm not sure what they mean, they can refer to this chart as part of the same viewer. Again, so I want to say thanks to my team for working really hard to get that up and out there. And we'll continue to refine it, with what feedback we get, but we want to make sure that you can access that and see this process as it moves forward. The next thing I wanted to address, again, we also received just questions and concerns over the what we call cross-contamination, but ultimately what that is how do we keep the debris from getting tracked all over the place in between properties or on the road between the property and the temporary debris storage site. And there's two parts to that answer. So at the properties, if you're watching, and this is what our folks there are ensuring gets done. So those trucks, as they park, they are parking on pavement. They're not parking on the debris when they get filled. Additionally, the plastic that is wrapped that the debris goes into drapes all the way over the sides and ultimately keeps that truck from getting any debris that would touch it on the outside. So that is how we keep the debris from going anywhere other than in that truck. It does not get on the tires. It does not get anywhere where we would worry about it coming off as it drives down the road at the homeowner's site. Once it gets to the temporary debris storage site and drops off that debris, then it will, as it comes off, for the most part, it's going to always be driving on clean soil. They build a ramp of clean soil that truck can move up to and dump from. That said, if it does touch the debris as they're working within that site, they'll use dry cleaning methods to clean that off, so brooms and whatever's necessary to get any of that debris off of the wheels of the truck before it leaves the TDS. Again, so we're watching very closely, and the team has a great procedure that's been working since the start. And again, that is intended all to keep that debris from cross-contaminating anywhere else. You'll also see we've got street sweepers and other tools out there that the team uses to try to help with that. I did want to cover a few other things, and then I'll wrap it up here. I mentioned, the opportunity to come out and view the process again, and we do encourage that. When homeowners get that 72-hour call, which again is a call that you receive from our contractor that says, hey, we are scheduling your property for debris removal. It may not mean that your property starts 72 hours later. What it means is it won't start sooner than 72 hours later. But they'll communicate that to you, and they'll schedule that. Part of the questions that they will ask is, hey, do you want to be there? Do you want to go to the site ahead of time so we can talk to you about your property? Again, so we encourage that type of participation. The other piece I would say we also encourage is, for those of you that are part of the first properties that we're cleaning and over the next few weeks, we encourage you to talk to your neighbors, to talk to those from your community and share your experiences. We were fortunate up in Kula that we had one homeowner in particular that even agreed to come and let us do a video of that individual talking about the process. It's not so we can pat ourselves on the back. It's 100% so we can share your experiences with the rest of your community. So as we do that, would encourage anybody, definitely let us know if you're interested in doing that. But again, it's all about helping to demonstrate what it is we're doing and help folks understand this process. So if they do have concerns, they do have worries, that they can be more confident and not need to worry quite as much as we do this work. The next to last thing I want to talk about. So the mayor already said it. I was going to try to avoid the term of burrito wrap tonight because I'll just be 100% transparent. I wish we didn't call it that because if you go to a Mexican restaurant and you get a burrito, but it comes open on your plate, then that's bad, right? So the reality is, I think there's been some concerns over, hey, wait a second, the plastic that we're wrapping this in is coming open in the TDS. That is 100%, what is supposed to happen. It is not intended, or it does not need to stay wrapped in the TDS. I can tell you confidently, the TDS has all the protections necessary in it to protect that debris from getting anywhere outside the TDS and contaminating the environment. It does not depend on the plastic wrap. I'm going to try to shift plastic wrap staying closed. That plastic wrap is 100% for the in-transit period that debris is making its way from the property to the temporary debris storage site. And they've done a great job, and we watch them very closely to ensure that those stay closed. But they wrap that plastic around the debris inside the back of the truck, put the dust cover that comes over top of that comes over top, and they strap it all down. But it is 100% just for that in transit. So there's concerns over the temporary debris storage site, and the plastic comes apart when they place it. Again, I just would hope to relieve you of those concerns that is not anything that we need to be worried about. The last thing I wanted to mention, and just say, so last week when we were here, I wanted to let you know that we did hear you, and we did hear the concerns about the safety next to our work. I think the question was asked, hey, would you be comfortable putting your family next to this work being done? And again, 100% transparency, and I wouldn't choose for anyone's family, including my own, to have to go through what this community has gone through. And I think that's just the truth of the situation that your community is going through. And I can't tell you how thankful I am and impressed I am for how this community is working through this. But again, I wouldn't choose that for any family. That said, our processes and procedures as we're doing this work, I do have confidence that I could have my family standing right next to it as it's going. I would tell you in Kula, we had homeowners that stayed in their homes right next to this work, and they had their concerns, and they were talking to us that, hey, we're really worried. but they stayed in their homes and we didn't have any complaints, any concerns. We were able to control that debris completely. That's the same standard we're holding here in Lahaina. The wet methods that we're using are working. It is effective. The air monitors that we're using are working. I do want to emphasize one thing, and I know we'll hear from Department of Health, and they'll talk about their air monitors. I think a key aspect that I haven't really explained before is that the air monitors that we use, they are 100% intended to tell us if there's particulates in the air. It's kind of like a smoke detector. It tells us that something is in the air so that we can stop. If there's of the multiple layers, if the first layer on the edges of the property goes off, it's being constantly monitored, then everything stops. And do we need to add more water? Do we need to do something? What's going on? And then the next layer out, honestly, it should never get to that layer because we're paying attention to the layer closer. So again, it is a bit different than the monitors that are out throughout the community, monitoring for the overall air quality. But again, that protection there gives me all the confidence that, again, as we're doing this work, if you're right there, if you're in a home right next to it, that ash, the contaminants in that ash are not causing any type of risk to those folks, because I know we will keep that up as we do this work. Those are my notes for tonight. Again, appreciate you tolerating me going a little bit longer than usual. But thank you so much for listening, and we will stick around after the meeting to answer any questions. Thank you.
Aloha. My name is Carl Banks. I'm the Incident Commander for EPA's Water and Wastewater Mission. I want to take this opportunity to introduce Dawn Eisen, ask her to step up here. She's going to be our Incident Commander starting tomorrow. I've been working on this since late November. It's time for me to go home, spend some time with the family, recuperate. I'll be back in February. And there will be a total of 4 of us leading these mission assignments for EPA. But we will stay consistent and involved. I want to just assure you that you're in good hands with Dawn and the people who will follow her. But I'll be back. So as I spoke last week, our current mission assignment from FEMA to do sewer line inspections in support of the County of Maui Department of Environmental Management will begin the first week of February. So I just wanted to come back and give you a little more information about that operation and what it's going to look like. Can you all see? I can move up. Next slide, please. So again, to just understand a little bit about the pre-fire condition and what happens in a wastewater treatment system and plant. Normally, sewage goes into our wastewater collection lines. And sewage is like food for the microorganisms that conduct treatment of wastewater at the plant. Sometimes you'll hear people say the bugs, the bioreactor. These are living beings that eat sewage. And in doing so, they render that safe along with clarification and UV disinfection. What comes out of the wastewater plant is safe to discharge into the environment. So post-fire, on the next slide, thank you. All that sewage stopped going into the system. And as a result, that left an empty space. And that empty space gets filled in with groundwater that seeps through the pipes and through cracks, holes. These pipes, especially in some parts of Lahaina, are very old. And so a lot more salty, brackish water entered into these pipes. Now, just like you or I cannot sit down and eat an entire plate of salt, the microorganisms in the treatment plant would also be disrupted, upset, if they got too much salt all at once. And that upset could result in partially treated wastewater being discharged into the environment, which we want to avoid. So the Department of Environmental Management, they plugged up sections of the wastewater lines in order to protect those microorganisms, to protect the bugs from all that salt water. So what are we going to do to this, to respond to this issue? So the sewer line inspections of all roughly 99,000 linear feet of wastewater collection lines would normally take the county a very long time to complete. So the mission assignment from FEMA is for EPA to do that much more rapidly. What we will do is provide the information to the county, and they will do their own assessment from the data, from the footage we provide, and determine where the critical areas are for repairs need to be made, and they will make those urgent repairs. They will then be able to open up sections of the wastewater collection line, and it has to be a methodical, careful process. Again, we have to keep the bugs healthy and happy consuming wastewater. So this process will proceed, and what we're doing will help move that process along even faster. Next slide, please. So to give you an idea of what this looks like on the ground, our contractors, under our direction, will be first doing a clearing of sections of the wastewater lines. This is just a routine thing. Actually, the county does it on a routine basis. But we'll be pushing high pressure water through that system and clearing out debris and then suctioning that out from each section of line. Next slide. After which, a specialized crew with a robotic camera that looks similar to this, will send that camera through the wastewater line. And that camera is a very precise device. It knows exactly how far it's traveled down the line. Next, please. And it sees this, and it captures this footage, and it identifies and allows the county to see exactly where there might be a hole that needs urgent repair. And it can tell the county exactly where that hole is. Next. So we'll provide that footage and that data to the county. They'll make their assessments to make repairs. And that's basically the entire process that we'll be doing for this mission assignment. Part of what you can expect as soon as next week will be a fact sheet. So we'll bring those and make those available. You can take them home and look them over slowly at your leisure. On the left is the door hanger that we will be placing on any occupied residences prior to doing work on that street. The county requirement is at least 48 hours notice before work starts. And once that 48 hours is complete, we'll do the work within 5 days. So this will allow anyone who is in their homes in those areas where we're working to be aware that this is occurring. And there's a phone number should you have any concerns or questions. So a lot of you have asked about Waihekuli, and I understand how significant that is and why that's on your minds. I have to explain that is really part of recovery. It's going to be a longer process. What we're doing now is part of response. And so we're trying to get as much of the wastewater and the water systems up and running in a short period of time. And that is a shorter period of time than Waihekuli. The county's Office of Recovery, DOH, EPA, congressional staff, a lot of people are working on the Waihekuli issue. That is going to require funding, planning, engineering. So I want to let you know that's happening. There are people on island who can answer your questions better than I or our response, because we are really focused on the mission at hand, these immediate responses. And I understand it's still a very big concern. So there'll be more to come on Waihekuli. I'm not the one to give those answers, so I just wanted to make that clarification, the difference between our response work and the recovery work. So in our efforts to understand the history here in Maui and Lahaina and to better understand the culture, we, on a daily basis, I try to share some Hawaiian words with our team. So forgive my poor pronunciation, but Maui no ka'oi. It has been a privilege for all of us to work here in Lahaina. It's gotten into our hearts. And we thank you for all your support. Mahalo, nui loa.
Good evening, Erin Wade with the County of Maui Department of Management. Here to give you an update on rights of entry. As of this evening, we have 1,934 rights of entry begun. Yay, that does deserve an applause. 97 of those are fully vetted and approved and given to the Army Corps of Engineers for cleanup to begin, and we will be scheduling those. I did want to say 85% of those are residential, 44% of those are commercial, so we're still trying to get and encourage those who haven't been able to take the time to do so to please engage with us and talk to folks who have done it or made the choice and find out if you need some more information. One of the things that has been a holdup, we've had a number of folks start a right of entry application and then kind of leave it hanging. Or we've also had this week a bunch of people call and say, I haven't gotten a status update, what's going on? So a couple of hot tips for what to do in this situation. The first is to double check and make sure you have verified your email address. So when you do start a record to create a right of entry, it's going to automatically send you an email, and you have to verify that email in order for it to officially be submitted in the process to start. So please double check your email, make sure you've done the verification. If you don't have an email address, or if you're having trouble with the verification process, please call the call center number. That's 808-727-1550. 808-727-1550. And as Curtis said, we do have a right of entry workshop again this Saturday. That's at Lahaina Luna High School cafeteria from 3 to 5:30 p.m. You can ask us whatever you want about the debris removal process, the right of entry. If you have something specific to you or your family, we're happy to talk to you about it. And the Tidal Basin team who will help input right of entry information, we'll have 4 agents there to assist you if you have any questions. So please come and we hope to see you then. Thank you.
Aloha, my name is Kathy Ho. I'm the Deputy Director for Environmental Health. I wanted to talk a little bit about air and the air monitors and air sensors. The Corps of Engineers refers to their air monitors as monitors. We refer to them as purpose sensors. The effect is the same, and that is that it will pick up particulates in the air, but it does it just any kind of particulates in the air. So we have been at these community meetings, and we put purpose sensors and E-bands, which are also a sensor, a monitor, throughout Lahaina and Kula. And we've asked you to look at fire.airnow.gov. And when you look at it, you can see if it's green, that means that the air quality is good. If it's yellow, that means there is a detection of some kind of particulate. And if it's red, it means it's bad. But when you look at it, I want you to, when you look at it, and there are several apps that you can have on your phone, so that if you ever want to carry it around and you can see what the air quality is in Lahaina or in Olowalu or in Kula, you can look at your app. But what I want to caution you is that there are times where a sensor will be yellow, but all the sensors around it may be green. And that may be because there is a particulate in the air, but it could be something as simple as someone was smoking. So there was a purple sensor that was put up, and every like clockwork at 8:30 every morning, it would turn yellow. And it was because, and we sent someone out, and it was because the guy, the homeowner, was smoking every morning at 8:30. So his purple sensor was working, but it wasn't, it was particulates, but it was the smoke in his cigarette. Often right here in this center, at one time, the purple sensor was red. And we were like, what the heck, right? And Becky, our on-island air personnel, came and found that there was an ant that had died in the purple sensor. So there could be reasons why their monitors or the purple sensors have a different color, like wood chipping or smoking meat or other things. So we just ask that when you look at it, look at the sensor, the monitors and sensors around. The other thing I wanted to tell you, as we did in Kula, is we set up 4 samplers. So what we're doing is we're taking air samples in and around Lahaina to determine what the air quality is while the debris removal is occurring. So as some of you may have heard me reporting on the Kula air quality in the past while their debris removal was occurring. We've already started the air sampling for heavy metals and for asbestos. We won't get those results back probably until early February, but we are taking samples weekly. So I wanted to report on that. And then I wanted to report that actually we have 37 purple sensors located in and around Lahaina and 3 in Olowalu. Today we had 2 teams from the Clean Air Branch come out, and they were able to install an additional 7 purple sensors in Lahaina and, a total. 5 in Lahaina and 2 in Olowalu. So we are always looking for locations to install these purple sensors. All we need is electricity and Wi-Fi. So if you're interested, Becky here, whose hand is raised, you can go see her to give her an address and telephone number, and she will be happy to see if we can install something. Again, if you are interested in your air quality, please look at fire.aeronaut.gov, or I'm happy to show you my app on my phone where I can get real-time air quality. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I know some of you are interested in sampling of the nearshore waters. We have begun doing that. We have a contract with a nonprofit who's taking samples, so we should get those results. Unfortunately, the lab is really backed up for results, so that's going to take a 2 to 3 month time frame. But as soon as we get those results, I'll report them out. Again, if you have any questions about air and installing the air monitoring, please see Becky. If you have any other questions about environment, I'm happy to respond to those questions. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Vargas. I'm a public information officer with the Small Business Administration. I'm here to remind you that tomorrow is the last day to apply for a loan. Any homeowner, renter, nonprofit organizations, or businesses of any size can apply for a loan to help you recover. If you have not applied, you have until tomorrow. We will be here tomorrow, 8 to 4, We also have a disaster loan outreach center at the Kahului Public Library, and it will be open 9 to 4 tomorrow. And at the Maui Research Center in Kihei, we also have a business recovery center where anyone can go talk to one of our personnel. They can explain you the program and the options that you have. You are not obligated to take the loan if you are approved. And also, if you were referred from FEMA to SBA, please apply. Because if we can approve you a loan, we can refer you back to FEMA other needs assistance programs. So please remember this. We also have a 1-800-659-2955. You can call for more information, and I will be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to move down here so the computer can catch the changing of the slides. If it does. My name is Josiah Nishida, Managing Director for the County of Maui. There we go. Helping to lead the Office of Recovery efforts. Appreciate everyone being here today. As you know, we covered last week that one of the things we'd be talking about this week was our public sentiment analysis. And we do have our, we call them affectionately, our FEMA friends. Some of them are here today that actually helped us put this together. I did get a question at one point when talking about the public sentiment analysis from an individual from Lahaina. And I think it was a fair question, was why are you spending so much time telling me about what I told you? And really the answer to that is that what we heard along the way from a lot of community members was that a feeling of that the county and government agencies in general is not hearing from you and not taking your considerations into account, and that there's nobody documenting these things. And so the public sentiment analysis was a way to really encapsulate everything that has been provided to us within the time frame in which we produce this. As well as to help gauge community sentiment and feelings along the way. So we do hope to do this periodically to see how community feelings and needs and desires and whatnot has changed as time goes on. Obviously, new things will come up and new issues will arise, and we'll help the community to address that. I would like to note, as a part of the public sentiment analysis, that these were taken a lot early on, thanks to our county council members for hosting a lot of committee meetings and other community meetings, and other agencies that assisted along the way. We helped pull together a lot of information that was presented at that. Some of the information you'll see here today, I think you'll realize it was a lot in the early going stages, soon after the wildfire event. And so, you know, the top needs of the community does change over time, but we did utilize this to help share with the community. We are hearing you. We have heard your issues. We are taking them into account. And if anyone wants to see kind of the full presentation of this, you can go to mauirecovers.org, and we do have that available up on the website. Just real quickly to highlight, there are a lot of slides. I won't go through them all in significant detail. But we kind of classify those with close ties as, you know, you might be a family member of somebody who was impacted in the disaster impact area, or you had significant memories or childhood or whatnot that was expressed as a part of the testimony. Directly impacted, maybe you actually lived within the impact area, had a home, property, things of that nature. And then not specified doesn't mean that there was no association or ties to the Lahaina impact area. It's just it wasn't expressed in the testimony that was provided. Just as a reminder to everyone, we do have our recovery support teams that have been established as a part of the National Disaster Recovery Framework. And these teams, utilizing really the base of what the community has recently given to us in the West Maui Community Plan as a foundation to build from, has utilized that, as well as a lot of public input along the way to help formalize what will be some of the initial strategies going forward. And you'll be able to see that, and I'm sure we'll talk later in future community meetings about the recovery needs assessment and how the community will get involved in prioritizing those and actually identifying projects to help implement the community's vision. This is just a word chart, just really highlighting a lot of the different words that were expressed by community members. You can see rebuilding was kind of one of the top themes there, along with affordable housing, evacuation routes, Hawaiian culture. This just helped give a visual sense of some of the top common themes or words that were expressed by individuals along the way. The first theme that was kind of generated from community input and testimony would be prioritizing community voices and needs. So as you can see, I mean, we're implementing some of this now, and we'll talk a little bit later in this presentation about the future engagement efforts. But a lot of the expression of this was, we want to be involved. We want the community to be leading this. We want our government to hear us. We want to be included in the decision-making process. And listening to the community's ideas and helping to facilitate that in some type of setting was an expressed desire. There was also input about increasing transparency and accountability from all of us throughout this event, as well as clear public communication about services, the recovery and timelines involved, different projects that may be implemented, and also to see a greater government presence in Lahaina, working directly with people on the ground was significantly expressed by individuals. I would just note at the bottom right, I forgot to cover this with the first slide, you can see kind of boxes with pictures. It might be small for some of you up there, but they do identify the different recovery support teams we have in place, green indicating it may fall within their bucket as we go through the recovery process. As you can see on the side, where we talk about like directly impacted, close ties, and others, it's just really formulating the testimony that was received and the affiliation of those individuals as expressed in their testimony to the disaster impact area. Enhancing public safety was another common theme, that the rebuilding should prioritize this so that these types of events or disasters do not happen again. And I think that's something that we all commonly share, that we do not want to see some type of event like this ever happen again in our community and in the state of Hawaii, or really anywhere. Concerns about school reopenings and the impacts to our children. Debris removal process, a desire to see better evacuation routes, better wildland and fire management practices, better warning systems, air and water quality monitoring, and an accountability for managing and maintaining agricultural lands, especially those abutting residential or community areas. The third emerging theme was increasing housing and employment options. There's a lot of expressed fear or concern over having to possibly leave Lahaina or your community because of lack of affordable housing. Significant uncertainty being expressed over short-term housing being available and sheltering options. Community members focused on a concern about worrying where they're going to sleep tomorrow and how that could affect their ability to participate in visioning efforts or recovery or rebuilding efforts, and also just planning for the future. Really identifying the need to really secure and stabilize the housing situation for individuals in order for us to help facilitate a better recovery and engagement process with our community. There was also requests for changes to short-term rentals to incentivize or promote renting to longer-term tenants like survivors, expedited permitting for residential housing, financial relief or property tax relief. And as we're going through some of these a lot of these areas, you can see that there's already initiatives being taken in response to a lot of the input received from the community. And there'll be more information to come too about how some of these areas will be implemented. The fourth theme brought forth was to diversify the economy beyond tourism. I think our community has talked about this a lot, so I won't belabor the point, but really focus on workforce development, bringing in new industries, as well as the tourism activities and hospitality industry that we have in place, about making it better for our community as a whole. The fifth theme identified was protecting cultural landmarks and practices. Expressed desire to use our cultural knowledge and practices as a guide for rebuilding and recovery efforts. Respectful Aina land management practices to be incorporated into how we view and shape our community going forward, especially as we envision about what our Lahaina community will now look like. Honoring and preserving our cultural heritages, where we came from, learning from past issues, things that have already occurred or are in the process of being implemented, and as well as learning from other communities that have unfortunately experienced this before, being able to integrate those best practices and frankly, failures that have occurred in the past, so that we don't have these types of issues in the future, and we can implement those best practices for a better Lahaina. The sixth theme identified was rebuilding more sustainable and resilient infrastructure with impacts of climate change in mind and considering future generations. Desire for undergrounding electrical lines, connecting to sewer lines of areas that have cesspool or septic systems, using more R1 water for various maybe fire suppression methods or agricultural practices, more of a focus on sustainable agriculture or agricultural activities in general. And we did have comments inputted as well about the healthcare capacity and need for a West Maui hospital. The seventh theme identified was equitable water rights and land use policy. And this is a priority issue that really ties into a lot of other areas that we've talked about and we'll talk about. Water access for residents of Lahaina was a top concern. Wanting to connect in private water purveyors to county lines to create redundancy and resiliency. Change of taxation and enforcement of land use, implementing measures of reports that have been issued in the past or recommendations that have been provided to better our community, and making zoning enforcement more equitable and transparent in the process are some of the areas that have been identified. The eighth theme identified was increasing shoreline and green spaces. So I think a lot of testifiers had identified not wanting to build back with the same footprint as before. Manage retreat policies, shoreline access, memorial space for those of our family members and friends that we have lost. Increasing green space and park space and agricultural space within the community, and just making the town more pedestrian friendly were some of the themes that were identified throughout this. And the ninth and final theme through the public sentiment analysis was to demonstrate trauma-informed leadership. So many testifiers and community members sharing their personal stories that they have gone through, that they've witnessed, that their family members and friends have experienced. Really just mourning the loss of their community and how that plays into the recovery and rebuilding efforts. And there was desires expressed to allow the community time to mourn and to heal, to support mental health services, trauma services, and other forms of self-care for community members in need. And then to really center the rebuilding processes around our most vulnerable, like our keiki, our kupuna, and others who really need our assistance in these difficult times. So in the coming weeks ahead, likely sometime in February, we're going to be beginning on kind of more formal community engagement processes. What that could look like is public comment sessions, where we'll have possible town hall meetings or separate sessions to provide feedback on proposed recovery plans or strategies. Focus group discussions, where different groups of residents can come together and have more intimate experience in terms of sharing their personal feedback or providing guidance in certain areas. Different means of being able to provide feedback. We know everybody can't be here in person all the time. So we do want to provide avenues for people to participate remotely, online, and in other venues so that being able to be physically here is not a limitation to your ability to be engaged throughout this process. And community surveys to just gauge how we're doing, what the community feels is kind of some of the next steps ahead, and insights, and just helping to understand the evolving needs of our community as we go along. And that's a lot of work for all you folks. There's a lot of time commitment, a lot of your personal stories and feedback that you be shared. And so what will the return be on that, And so what our commitment is really transparency in that process. Part of that is engaged in that public sentiment analysis. But, really building the recovery needs, strategies, and projects based off of the community input that we're receiving, and sharing with the community the different challenges that we're facing, or to help prioritize projects in areas, maybe understanding the costs and benefits so that the community can make a more well-informed decision. And then just integration of it overall into how we develop and how we implement things. One thing I have to say is there's a lot of things that are shared from all different community members, all different perspectives. Does this mean that we can do every single thing that's shared with us? And unfortunately, the answer is no. And then sometimes the feedback that we get and the insight from different community members actually is in conflict with other, testimony that we may receive or other visions for the community. And so as we go through the community planning process, there will be difficult conversations to be had, there will be difficult decisions to be made. But I think how we approach it is we all come in humble, try to do what's best for our community, make the best decision possible, and include the community along the way. The other areas we'll be able to help provide insight into the community is, of course, on the prioritization stage in terms of what the impacts might be, such as costs to our taxpayers, such as maybe time that would be needed before individuals could move back to their properties, things of that nature, so that the community has a fuller understanding of what the impacts of those decisions will be, and we can make a better decision going forward. So this is just kind of highlighting some of the key themes and the number of individuals that have provided feedback. As we said, as we're wrapping up here, we plan to continue this in iterations as we go through our recovery process. There'll be more formal engagement process that will be occurring in February, and we encourage all of you to share your input, feedback, and ideas, including if we're not doing things well, if we can do things better. So different ways to engage people or better ways to reach you. We're more than happy to take all that into account. And ultimately, our goal really is to help recover and restore your community back better than it was, and envision and model that the Lahaina community desires. So we really appreciate all your time. We'll be here after, of course, for any questions. But thank you, and we look forward to continue working with you all.
All right, thanks everybody. How many would like to see Josiah repeat that whole thing again? Anybody? You guys got all that? You guys want to get some of those statistics back? Nobody? All right, I was just checking. So before I call our next speaker up, which is your council member, Tamara Paulton, I just wanted to correct a couple of things that Aaron Wade asked me to check on. So we had 1,934 ROE applications. 970 were processed, not 97. And I know a couple of you math majors heard her say 85% residential and 44% commercial, yeah? We're just checking to see if you guys were listening. 85% of the 100% residential were received. 44% of the 100% of commercial were received. So we had two different groups. Okay, you guys, we're good? All right. I'd like to ask Tamara Paulton to please come forward and share with you her thoughts. And then we're going to open up to some questions. Okay?
Aloha mai kako. Sorry for my voice. I've been talking so much, I'm losing it a little bit. But I just wanted to share with you folks, I don't have any facts or figures, but just on a human to human level, not as a council member or anything, that I encourage everyone, like Laurie said, to do whatever you need to do to bring you a little bit more healing. Last week, I had an opportunity to go to a healing conference put on by the Fraternal Order of Leatherhead Society, which is like a first responder organization. And for me, I went to support our first responders, right? But in the process, I felt like I got a little bit to healing, you know? I didn't lose my house, I lost my office burned down, but I also went to a psychological first aid workshop with the Red Cross. And all these places that I go to is to support the workers and try to, you know, just show them care, show them there for them. But really, in that journey of supporting our workers, to me, I feel like I'm getting more than I'm giving out, because I'm there to help people try to get past whatever it is that's happening. But in really listening to the messages getting out, I feel like I'm getting healed. Like, you know, even in the march, I went to support the people that went for the march. And, you know, when I started hearing the taiko drums and coming into Laniapoko, I started losing it. So that's just really all that I wanted to say, is whatever you can do that helps you. And, you know, most times I like to cry at night alone. and last week I've been crying a lot in public, and I'm like, man, it's been about 6 months. You think I'd be out of tears already, but just wanted to say, you know, it's okay. It's okay to cry in public. It's okay to cry in your bed at night alone. One of the things in the psychological first aid that really helped me personally is they have a list of things that are natural responses to trauma, you know, and the biggest thing that I took away from that workshop was being startled easily is a natural response. You know, I'm walking around the county building, some of my colleagues tell me hi, and I'm like, didn't even see them coming. You know, I'm super startled, like, holy cow. And I thought there was something wrong with me, you know, like, what's going on? But just learning that that's a natural response to trauma helped me. And hearing the county workers, we were trying to give them these tools because, you know, we're all human, and it's really normal to be angry. It's really normal to be sad. It's really normal to have anxiety. But as humans, we're also capable of having more than one emotion at one time. And while I'm angry or sad or whatever, I'm also super grateful that we got, you know, folks like Mark Wingate, who hasn't had a day off since, like he says, 9 August, which I don't know how we say that, but it means August 9th. and you know, even our public works workers are everyone, a lot of them lost their own houses while they were helping the effort. You know, I hear a lot of negative talk even about Miko. A lot of them lost their houses too, you know, and they're not the ultimate decision makers in policy. Our police, our firemen, they lost their houses as well. They're in the same boat as us, but they're still going to work for us. Some of our advisory members, you know, they lost their house. So we can focus on all the bad stuff, but it's also important to focus on the helpers, the people that keep showing up for us, because like one really smart guy I know said, like, if you have a car and you need it to run and your battery won't work without a positive and a negative. So that's what makes up our life. And you gotta take the positive with the negative, and just all of us gotta help each other along, because it is a horrible thing that we went through. And if we don't become more resilient because of what happened, then that's the worst thing that I can think of to be the outcome. So yeah, if we can just thank all the folks that are showing up for us still, regardless of all the things that are going on in their life and in our town and in our island. I think that is one step to the healing as well. So thank you.
Just in case it applies to you. Before we wrap up, you know, next week. Oh, sorry, Facebook Live people. Hello. A little awkward, but it's okay. Before we wrap up tonight, you know, we've been at this for a few months now. We've brought in our operations people, our emergency management folks to come and help with questions and give the updates that people have wanted. Next week, you've been hearing us talking about the Mayor's Advisory Group coming in and leading a discussion themselves and taking some questions. But we're going to warm that up a little bit. Tonight, we invite you and welcome some questions. We've been at this for about an hour and a half, so I want to be mindful. One of the benefits of our format over time, folks have told me, is that they can get the updates and get going. You know, go home and get to dinner and whatever needs to get done and get some rest. So, but we do want to see if anyone, we had so much information tonight. I promise it's not a quiz. There's just so much that they wanted to share as an update. But if you have a question that any of these speakers can help clarify, if you raise your hand, I'll bring the mic over to you. You don't need to like gallop down the stairs, okay? So I'm gonna go to the gentleman here in the black, followed by Uncle there with the red shirt. And then we're just gonna do that for a little bit. Raise your hand, we'll come and ask a question and have our folks answer, okay? I'll be right up. Actually, the reason, sir, is because folks online would like to know what the question is. So I'm gonna come to you. I promise not to fall. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Mahina. I don't think we heard an update from the Department of Water Supply, and is maybe the mayor or somebody else could update us on what's happening with water supply.
Okay, great, thanks. The question, looks like Mayor's taking a private question. The question was about Department of Water Supply. Josiah, would you have a little bit of an update? And then we can supplement that next week as well.
Yeah, we can bring our personnel the following week to give more in-depth analysis, but ultimately you'll see the most updated information on MauiRecovers.org, especially on the reopen zones and what's happening. Just to give you just a little bit of assessment, they are going through testing of the different laterals as they move down the line, kind of similar to what EPA did a great job providing analysis on what's happening with the sewer lines. course, they got to clear water lines as they go down to make sure that it's safe and drinkable. There are, I always butcher acronyms. I think it's volatile organic compounds, VOCs, that could be in lateral lines that go from a main line to a property line up to servicing the individual property. And so as we go through, there's individual tests that have to be done and possible modifications to that to protect that main line so that users along the way can continue to access safe and potable water. But we will have personnel provide more in-depth analysis as to specific areas. I think maybe that's what you're getting at a future meeting. Thank you.
My question is, the building permit process right now, Maui take about 9 months to a year without even the Lahaina. Now, I can see a lot of empty lots without any buildings on the lots. So is there a way the county is doing something to fast track the building permit process?
Thank you very much for the question. I feel like maybe I'm going to get all the questions tonight. But yeah, just to give you an update, we did talk a little bit about it last week. We are establishing an expedited permitting process. We are in the process, actually council, I don't know where Councilmember Paulton went, but tomorrow they'll be hearing it in the VI committee, kind of some of the initial first steps of what we're proposing. And that will be in Councilmember Tom Cook's committee. I believe it starts at 1:30 if I'm not mistaken. So you can tune into that too to receive kind of further information. But just to give you a quick snapshot, we did issue an RFP, which is a fancy word for just kind of getting bids together. And we are in the process of analyzing those and scheduling interviews. We hope to make a selection by February 16th with a expedited permitting office set up by the end of March. That's what we're shooting for right now. There'll be a lot of different code provisions that will need to be changed. We'll need council's assistance on, as well as a lot of internal things that we're working out. But ultimately, it's to get you a permit as quickly as possible, but ensuring that the proper building measures are met so that our community is continued to be safe and whatnot. But you will not be experiencing 9 to 10 month plus waiting times. We are shooting for initial reviews within 15 days for that. But of course, if you have problems with your submittal or you didn't follow the guidelines or whatnot, there may be additional reviews that will have to occur. But we'll provide more information as it gets closer. We're hoping to have a physical location actually set up in Lahaina by the end of March so that you can have direct interaction with them.
Thank you, Josiah. Mayor, want to elaborate, and we'll go on to our next two questions.
Hey, how is this for Baldwin High graduate right here, Josiah Nishita? You guys, come on, give him some good.
Wait, I wouldn't say that name.
Don't say that. Don't bring up that. The RFP request for proposal is to hire an outside firm to come in and do the reviews of the permits for us. We don't have enough folks that work in the permitting office now, which is one of the reasons for the delays. I know you don't need to hear my excuses, but we do have some staffing shortages, so we're not going to send it to our same, we'll call the old system. This is the expedited, the new system. So we're trying to get approval for funding so we can hire another outside group of consultants or whoever you might call them. They'll review the permits so that we can try to get that quicker. For all the folks impacted here at Kula, and then we're going to try to extend that. If you live in Lahaina, you lost your property in Lahaina, but you have property somewhere else on Maui, and you want to rebuild in that location, you would be eligible for expedited on that property too. Say you have a piece in Pukalani, and you don't want to wait for the cleanup here, you want to build somewhere else, you or your family. I will consider them too. We're still working out the parameters, but that's what the expedited is. Yeah. So, sorry.
Sorry, I just thought of one thing. We talked about this last week, but I'm sure our infrastructure guys will kill me if I don't clarify one thing, is that not all properties are going to qualify for the expedited permitting process. It will be limited to residential properties, so we're trying to get people back to their homes as quickly as possible, and it would only apply to a single family residential dwelling and accessory dwelling unit. So commercial properties, other properties that may be in like significantly, like historical areas. There might be like shoreline issues, things like that. Those are a little bit more difficult that we're gonna have to rectify because of state law provisions and other things. But we are hoping to come out with additional information to show people so that you can look up your own property and identify whether you fall in that qualification area for that process. I think we're initially identifying, I think the estimate was about 1,200 properties we anticipate would be qualified for the expedited permitting process. And you would still have to comply with flood regulations and things like that. Those safety improvements or requirements wouldn't be able to be bypassed.
Thank you, Josiah. We have two here that raised their hand, so we're going to go to these two questions. After that, we'll take a couple more if you raise your hand, and then we'll go back. So following these two, I'll make my way to the front row.
Good evening. So it's great to have these meetings every week with it, giving information to the Lahaina community. But it seems like some of the information regarding housing, we are hearing from outside sources before the Lahaina community is being even like asked about locations of potential projects like the one that we're hearing from Governor Green, hundreds of homes being built in Launiapoco, and then another couple of 100 modular proposals in Ka'anapali, and just wondering how this community can, one, be more involved in the process of picking these locations and the appropriateness of them, and then being able to hear about it first before, we turn on the news and Green is saying this. So just, trying to figure out a more inclusive process so that it does actually feel more like the slide you presented, community-led and government-supported. So just trying to figure out how that can happen. Thank you.
So I think the question for Mayor or Josiah is, can more be done to include?
So there's a lot of different folks that are working on this. When it comes to housing, and thanks for that question, Kai, there's an interim housing piece they're in right now. We announced that at a press conference a couple weeks ago. The $500 million has been put in between FEMA and Hawaii Community Foundation, the state, the county. The interim housing piece is designed to be between 18 and 24 months. Those pieces are mostly what the short-term rentals are. But what we're trying to do is put up some modular units in locations that already have infrastructure ready to go, that we can do it quickly. We're not taking a poll and asking everybody in the community, is this place okay, is that place okay? Because we've got the message loud and clear, which is build something now so that I can get out of the hotel and get into there. And that's what we're trying to do. We're answering the call of the community, which is to get things built as quick as possible in a safe space that has infrastructure, that has water. And you folks, I don't have to tell Lahaina challenges you folks have out here with infrastructure and water. The inventory that we have. The feedback we got, 80% of the people that are staying in the hotels want to stay on the west side. We had Waikapu as an option because it's already sort of ready, shovel ready. We took that out of the equation because people don't want to be in Waikapu. They want to be in Lahaina. So we're trying to find places in Lahaina. I mean, if these things were easy to do, you guys would have already had all these places built already. You'd have homes on them. You'd have subdivisions. There's a challenge to almost everywhere we've looked at. Let me be specific about Launiapoco. The county is not involved in that project. That's a state project between the Department of Human Services, the landowner, and whatever decisions they've made. We're not going to reject, decline, or turn away projects that are coming up, whether it's built by FEMA, built by the county, or built by the state of Hawaii. But I know people tend to group government, like everybody's government, whether you're federal, state, or county. It's all you guys, everybody's saying, we're not really. We're really not. We have different responsibilities, different roles, different jurisdictions, all those things. So I'm not going to comment anymore on why Launiapoco was selected as a site. The county did not consider that as a site to build our units. We did look at places like Kanapali 2020 you're talking about, because it was already a place that had entitlements. We got to think about grading, grubbing. We're trying to move with speed. We're trying to be safe. And we're trying to make sure infrastructure can all meet those needs. And as quick as we can build it is what we're trying to do. These are temporary homes, temporary modular units that will be taken down. So as far as the location, we're not asking the community, what do you guys think about a temporary place? Like, we didn't ask you guys what you thought about the hotels. We didn't ask anybody, do you prefer Hyatt? We just said, look, we got hotels. We're going to get people in hotels, take you out of this gym, take you out of the other shelters that were out there, and put you in someplace else. We're at another point now, another transition point, trying to get you out of the hotels and get you into someplace that is longer term. FEMA can only assist us for a certain period. The next thing that's going to happen, our more permanent, is going to be HUD. HUD's going to come in and help us with, we made a request for $1.2 billion from HUD to help us rebuild Lahaina. Maybe that's when we come to the community and talk about the long term. Where do you guys want an actual subdivision to be built or not built? Because a lot of times what the community tells us is where they don't want something. Build it any place but over here. Not over here. You guys can do this other stuff. So I feel like we're listening. I feel like we're taking your information. And I think what you want is something built as quickly as possible, as safe as possible. There are lots of ideas, and I'm going to spend all day talking about all the things that we talk about every day, mostly Josiah and his team, John Smith and his team at infrastructure, the guys. You guys all know the Lahaina Public Works guys, the Lahaina folks that are out there trying to help. And I want to give a shout out to Councilmember Paulton for mentioning that 76 of our county employees lost their homes. We talk a lot about our first responders, obviously tragic, but altogether, 76 of you guys, from you guys' community. So we're trying to help everybody. And the best I can tell you is we're going to work as quickly as possible. And we may not involve the community in every single decision that's made, but we have your interests, your best interests at heart when we try to do this. So thank you guys.
Aloha, folks. Thank you. Sir, I have a question for the gentleman that was talking about the sewage. We know that Lanio Waikuli is going to be a problem, and it's going to take a little bit longer. But I wanted to know, since you're cleaning out all the pipes going from the pump stations and getting that all working, does it appear that after you clear off all of the plots up in Lahaina Luna, that we may have to rebuild the sewage underneath those lots up in Lahaina Luna also?
Yes, thank you for the question. Basically, I can't speak to any particular area until we actually send those cameras through. So the process will send the cameras through. That data, that footage will go to the county so that they can assess where urgent repairs are needed. The goal is short term right now to allow them to restore service to the wastewater system. Long term, bigger repairs may be needed down the road, but right now it's just what we find. That information goes to the county, and urgent repairs will be made. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Aloha, and I want to thank everybody that is working for our community so diligently. My question has to do with building permits. I've talked to Josiah before about this, and I heard through the Coconut Wireless that we have a code 105.2.1 that is a disaster emergency relief building permit. Are you aware of that? Or can you answer or speak to that, please, Josiah?
Thank you very much. Yeah, there are in the International Building Code different provisions for different types of situations. So what our teams are doing, of course, when you look at like the International Building Code or other provisions like this, none of these things were built with specifically Maui or Lahaina or Hawaii in mind. These are like national standards or whatnot that are in place. So what our teams are doing when they're going through how the expedited permitting process will look like, or permitting process in general, is to make sure that we tie in our specific state law requirements county requirements that are in place to preserve environment, cultural resources, natural resources, things like that. And then build that into the permitting process in an expedited fashion so that we make sure that, as I think Councilmember Paulton had mentioned, one of the worst things that could happen is, recovering from all of this, but not being more resilient to the situations at hand. So yes, we are taking everything into account, but we also have to factor in the specific kind of natural, geographical, and cultural issues that we face. Thank you.
Aloha. Thank you for being here today. Appreciate it. Kai Palaio, I live in Hawaiian Homes here in Lele'i. Questions that have come up, if they're possible, it may not be able to be answered now, maybe be going before the county council. Is there hope that we can rebuild within the 120 setback for the generational Hawaiian homes that were on the beaches on Front Street? Is there just hope? Because right now under the setback laws and the destruction, 100% destruction, I can't build anything within 120 feet of the shoreline. That's my understanding, in a rough way. And then from the 120 to 300 feet is by permit, by review and permit, roughly speaking. So I know that in 1993, they suspended building codes and things for Iniki. Is there an opportunity here for us so we don't have to go through the transition and other things? Just say, is it hope?
Yeah, I wish I could have a solid answer for you at this time. There are existing property rights. There are existing laws and rules and regulations like the shoreline rules, SMA process and whatnot that are in place for shoreline properties. I think like our shoreline rules were recently passed and developed, but this is one of the kind of hot topics. And as we go through the community engagement process, does the community view this the same way as it did before? Because when the shoreline rules were processed and implemented, especially regarding like non-conforming structures along the shoreline, I'm not sure that anyone ever envisioned that the entire town would be gone. I think when the discussion was being had, it was, if an individual property was destroyed or damaged or whatnot, what would we do in those situations? So the community would be engaged along the process. I wish I could tell you yes or no right now, but we do plan to work with all you folks on how that will transpire.
Thank you, Josiah. We're going to take 2 more questions before we hit the 2-hour mark, so appreciate it. Our team will be here hanging out as we normally do. So we'll go to this woman here and then to the gentleman here, and then we'll turn this over to Mayor Bisson.
Hi, I have a couple of questions. We've been on the island for 2 weeks. We've been here volunteering. We're speaking to at least 100 to 150 people a day that are coming through the lines to get food, water. There's been a lack of water. We're volunteering with Jim and they're having a hard time getting the water. I talked to the city about getting some of those tanks up to the west side distribution center. People say, I've told them to go down to the Lahaina, they cannot go near the fire. They're so traumatized, they're not thinking straight, and no matter how much we tell them, they're not gonna listen. Okay, I cannot get water up to the west, up to the top end there for people to be able to access. And that's what they're begging for every day. I was supposed to have someone come down and meet with me this morning from the city to talk to me about getting a buffalo tank up. It was a no-show. I've been on the phone every single day for hours trying to get that. The other question is, why are the people being displaced? I know of families that have come to us and said, look, we've been in 2 or 3 places already. They've been put into condos where they've got all the facilities, their families there, they're finally settling in. Red Cross came in and said, sorry, you gotta be out by the 23rd. They don't know when they're gonna get into another facility like that. Now they're stuck in hotels where there's no facilities. Sure, they're being fed, but it's probably costing the government a lot more money when these condos are perfectly capable of keeping them there for the next 18 months.
So I would just tell you that every situation is unique. It's difficult to try to group everybody into one group. Some of those condominiums are privately owned by people who have set times that they've allowed them to be made available to us. The contract, I'll give you the answer. The contracts are made between the Red Cross and the state of Hawaii. And so, again, they're contracts, just like we have for all the folks that are, those of you that are staying in the hotels. Some of the folks in the hotels have had to move from one room to another room. People have moved from one property to another. That's one of the, I don't know what to say it, one of the realities of having this system, which is why we're trying to get them out. I think the important thing is we're trying our best to get people into longer term interim housing while they wait for their lands to be cleared so they can put their homes back on. So we don't control all of the factors that are going on. I'm not suggesting that you're blaming anybody in particular, but it's a difficult situation. Nobody knows more than the people are here, the people on my advisory team that are all suffering through that. We tried to talk about that earlier as one of the things we're trying to change. I don't understand the question about the water. I don't know if you mean cases or pallets of water, but yeah. Right.
Buffalo.
Yeah.
Buffalo unit.
Yeah, we've been dealing with water for 5.5 months by now. I think everybody who's been in it understands that. We can certainly look into that and try to figure out what's happening there. People should obviously not go without water. So.
And we'll talk to you right after this meeting.
Yeah,
so,
thank
sir, we'll go to your question, and then we're going to wrap, and we will be here in the gym anyway right after.
Yeah, thank you. My concerns was with people whose leases are ending with just their regular rent and landlord and stuff like that. You know, a lot of people are telling me that they're getting kicked out because they're getting offered more money from people who are participants of FEMA in the rental issue. So we all feel like it's an issue that needs to be kind of, we just want to know that somebody's there and this is being looked at. And I just want to feel like, yeah, there's something that's going to happen that's going to help us out and somebody's going to regulate this.
Yeah, that's a very fair question. There have been some unintended consequences that came out of this plan. So let me just paint the picture that I think. To try to help people, we either keep people in a gymnasium, we transfer them to a hotel or a condominium, we transfer them to existing dwelling units, which is temporary, short-term rentals, timeshares, non-owner occupied homes, or we build homes for people. So what is the quickest? Which of those is the fastest to do? So one of those is to use, we have 27,000 units on Maui between the three categories I just told you, timeshare, short-term rentals, and non-owner occupied homes. We need 3,000 of those. So about 10% of those is what we're looking for. FEMA's assistance, because FEMA is required in the first 18 months of a disaster to provide that temporary and immediate emergency, or I should say immediate housing during that period, 18 to 24 months. So one of the strategies was first, which is very rare, by the way, to use non-congregate sheltering, get you out of a gym, get you into a hotel. That was the first strategy. That's getting old for everybody. It's not working for everybody, obviously. So the next was to convert short-term rentals into long-term rentals. One way to do that, through the county council and the administration, was to give people tax relief. If you put, some people voluntarily gave up their short-term rentals for long-term, just so you guys know. We're not putting everybody in the same category. Some people just said, hey, some people gave their homes for free and said, you can live in my home. You're my ohana, you're my friend, you can live with us. Or you can live in my empty unit. Everybody tried to do what they could. But because we still have 5,326 people in hotels, in 30 hotels today, because we still have that, we are trying to incentivize the rest of the people who own second homes and dwellings. So how do we incentivize them? We say, listen, what if you don't have to pay taxes? So let's say you have $1 million property. You owe about $17,000 in annual taxes if you rent that out short-term rental. We tell her, look, no need pay for $17,000 this year. We're not going to collect that money from you as the county if you make your unit available for somebody impacted. So some people say, that's a good idea, I'll take that. But you see, there's two rental markets. There is The local rental market, all of you guys who've been paying rent to stay somewhere, let's say $3,000 a month, it's probably not realistic, but let's say for a 2-bedroom. And then there's the short-term rental market. Short-term rental market, they can charge $500 a day. So maybe they make $8,000 a month out of their unit. So now we're telling this guy who has an $8,000 a month unit, charge $3,000, like the guys who have regular rent. That's what would be ideal. They don't take it. So the agreement reached is we, meaning FEMA and the state, will pay you what you were earning as a short-term rental. So now you get the tax write-off, you get the tax benefit, you get the rates you were making last year. But the main thing is we're putting people in those units, right? We're getting people out of hotels into units. What that has done, the unintended consequence that you just brought up, which as many people have brought up to us, is somebody who had that $3,000 a month rent, a long-term rental, the owner says, hey, you know what, my family coming home. My family member coming home. Sorry, we got to end the lease. And then in some cases, leasing them to somebody at the $8,000 a month rate. An unintended consequence of this program, which is why we're asking FEMA to help us build units so we can put people into units that don't need to charge that amount. But we're not going to build those units overnight. It's going to take 3 months, 4 months, 5 months to get them here, put them up, get the infrastructure ready and get them in. Even that would be very speedy. But in the meantime, in those 18 months, people have some place to stay. The legislature has a bill that is going to impose a rent cap, a rent ceiling only for Maui. It's being introduced this legislative session. We're going to support that, our administration. It's going to change the state law on how you can charge rent. Right now, emergency proclamation that the governor has, we didn't put that up there, but we're going to agree to it. The governor, in his emergency proclamation, says you cannot evict people. The one exception is, my family's coming home to stay in my unit, and kind of trying to get around that. These are all the problems that come with trying to do the good, is you get some of these inherent problems. Of course, we're asking people not to be greedy. Help out your neighbors. Rent your place to somebody. Charge the rent that you would have charged. But with all the supply and demand happening. Now, what we're going to do, I told you it's 27,000 units, 3,000 we want them to convert. What's going to happen to the other 24,000 is we're going to impose taxes on them for not opting into the program, because the county is going to lose income, lose revenue from those 3,000 units that we're waiving taxes, right? So let's say we lose $20 million. I'm just picking a number. We're going to make up that $20 million from the other 24,000 people that never rent, that never offer their place for whatever good reason they might have. But now they're going to help us pick up the difference, because we got to keep our economy moving too. Everybody knows that, right? The most important thing right now for everybody, mental health. Mental health, the most important. But housing is right there, because it goes hand in hand. And then, of course, we try to keep our economy. So I don't know that we thought of everything. Probably not. We're going to make mistakes. We've made mistakes. But we're trying to solve that issue. So what you raise is on everybody's mind who used to rent here. People who were not impacted by the fire, just a regular person working at their job, now no more place to rent because they're going to take the FEMA. Now, the good news is FEMA has reached their limit, right? I think we're at 1,300 units. They found all their units. So FEMA is no longer looking for any more units. They feel, because they only have, you have to be FEMA eligible in order to be in that program. The rest, we're trying to do through the state and the philanthropic monies and us. So I didn't mean to go long. My friend Leigh, she told me, hey, Rick, you weren't here last week, Wednesday. The meeting went short. You come today, the meeting's all drag on long. So I don't want to drag this on anymore.
Mayor, I did make a mistake. I did not see Kupuna raising their hand.
Go ahead.
So, Uncle, I'm going to bring the mic to you for your question. And, Uncle, you're going to be the last question that we're going to take tonight. I'm going to give you the mic here.
Thank you. Thank you for all years that listening to us. Thank you very much. But my thoughts were about the Waikuli area that has schools, and that from what I've gathered, we working with speed, or we trying to work with speed, but didn't the county made a study on putting new sewer in the area before a disaster, and that they couldn't or they didn't because there was not enough monies for it. But my question is that, being that we are in a disaster program right now, isn't there something where the county can push forward to acquire the monies? And if we need engineers to make a study, wasn't there already a study to it? Because there's a county code that when the sewer line get installed, we have only about 100 somewhat days to hook up to it. So to kind of like eliminate that process, wouldn't it be only proper and, right at this time when there's no houses or, development in the area where it won't, by putting it in now, it won't disrupt the people who already built and had to do septic tanks between $40,000 and $50,000, and then after the sewer line get put in, that they would have to spend another $40,000 or $50,000 to disconnect and hook up to the county line. I mean, it's just a thought and a concern that I feel maybe somehow we can eliminate that part of the, and that's part of the healing to me. But I thank you, and, I'd like that to be kind of like a part of the process of rebuilding.
Thank you, Uncle. I'd like to call John Smith to come up. Your boss's mayor boss said for you to come. John is head of our infrastructure branch in this incident. So John, maybe you can help a little bit, and if there needs to be additional, then we'll close out.
Thanks, Mahina. Just trying to hide. That's okay. Yeah, my name's John Smith. I work for Public Works. Thank you for all the kind comments earlier there. The Waiakuli, can you guys hear me? No.
You just pull it out.
There we go.
Oh.
Gotta get taller people around here. Waiakuli is I'll just address your comments, is a big challenge for the county. It has been for a long time. There were plans done years ago where they tried to do that project. It's been discussed for, I'm sure, more than 20 years. The Blue Rock is a big deal. It makes the construction extremely difficult and extremely costly. That's why it's not done already. The good news is the plant has capacity. The wastewater treatment plant does have capacity. So it's just a matter of constructing the main lines through the road, which requires digging through the Blue Rock. That is not a typical or an easy construction project. It would take, I would say, at least a year just to do the construction, and that's after the design's done. So I know that we've worked with, already we've sent designs to FEMA, to EPA, to all of our partners here. They're looking at that closely, and we are trying desperately, working with our FEMA folks, to find the right source of funding to be able to do that project. Once that's identified, then we'll be able to tell you how quickly we can do it. We just can't tell you that tonight. So I would say it's the top priority project that we have for infrastructure. So that's all I can tell you now, but as soon as we get the funding source identified, then we'll be able to give you more information on that. We'll bring Shane back and the others. Does that answer or help answer the question?
Thank you, John.
He was trying to hide, all 6'7" of him was trying to hide in this room. Yes, sir. Right. So the comment is that the cost is going to be more than 50,000. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I know we've talked about that before at previous community meetings here. So one of the main responsibilities of government, at least at the county level, is to go and find resources. It's not a question of whether we should have it done, who should pay for it, how much it's going to cost. It's to obtain resources. And luckily, we've had some good success so far with our federal partners, our state partners, the philanthropy. So we're trying to be strategic with our requests and try to be strategic with the uses of those. We have not been told no yet by EPA for this project. And of course, that is something we're, as John pointed out, we're continuing to pursue. We don't control all of the factors involved in this decision. We don't have all the funds, the county doesn't, to do that particular project, and obviously all the other things that are left. So what we're trying to do is get our federal partners to help us as much as they can do the big lifts, our state partners, and they both committed to doing that, and they've already shown it to us. And of course, whatever's left is the county's kuleana to come up with. And whether that's, I mean, the last thing we want to do is increase taxes on somebody or put an assessment on somebody's property and say, well, this is how much your share is X amount of dollars. So it's impossible for us to answer that question tonight without, again, finding our partners. And just one last thing, I wish I said it earlier, but the Army Corps of Engineers that you heard earlier from Colonel Curry, in most of the places, disasters, they just put their dozers on one end of the project and they just go right to the other end and they clean them all up. One shot. Just go right down the road and just clean everything up, take everything out, dump them, and start and rebuild. Thankfully for us, they are listening to our cultural monitors and our cultural people and working with every single property individually to clean it up. I don't know if you guys even understand what the magnitude of that is. In case you're wondering why is it taking so long? Because they're not rushing on any of your guys' properties, on any historical place here. You could not find as many historical sites in a 5 square mile area, probably anywhere else in the world than Lahaina town, you guys. And they know it, and they had to learn this when they came here. People who learn how to say, Maui no ka'oi, mahalo nui loa. They're not just here to do a job. People who going out with their cultural monitors. I'm just saying we gotta acknowledge that there are a lot of people doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, in front, behind. So that's why they're being very diligent as we go through each property. So when you get a chance, you wanna say mahalo to them, that would be great. We're gonna conclude tonight because the people that run the gym for us here, they've been here all morning. They've been here since the morning, and we keep them here every Wednesday till late at night. You guys know the lights start going off. That's like the disco. They tell you time to go home, last call. So we're trying to get them out of here so they can get home to their families too. So mahalo, everybody. Travel safe.